That end table is actually a hydroponic garden with a grow light. The end table system is actually called the Miracle Grow 12, and they did not sponsor this video or even know I'm making it. One of the reasons I'm showing this hydroponic garden is because the grow light on it is so good that I use it to propagate other plants. And I'll explain the repurposed nursery cup and the cup in a little bit. This is a stevia cutting I just stuck into a grow pod in the Miracle Grow 12, and it rooted. I am also growing a mini Bella pepper plant in the Miracle Grow 12 for the first time, but it seems to be doing quite well. The Miracle Grow 12 only holds 4 plants at a time. Though the Miracle Grow system only holds 12 plants at a time, I have found a way to maximize the space using its magnificent grow light. And the method that I use to maximize the space in the Miracle Grow 12 is called cracky hydroponics. The plant that is being grown in these repurposed containers is a variety mix of lettuce. I have very poor natural lighting in the house, and keeping plants alive over the winter indoors is almost impossible. This is a 2-year-old avocado seedling that I bonsai'd last fall, so it's been bonsai'd for 1 year. I'm capable of keeping it alive using the floor space over winter because the lights are really good. The lights are so good that I'm able to propagate plants indoors. Though in order to propagate plants, I need some type of humidity dome, which I'm about to get into next. So what I have here is a 4-inch pot, and a lot of the restaurants are using clear plastic cups anymore, and I've not been throwing them away for the most part. And if you see here, this large cup fits perfectly on this 4-inch clay pot. It won't slide down, it won't fall out. It sits on that lip right there. And this, I believe, was a medium cup from a coffee company, and it just pops right onto that container, the nursery pot that I repurposed, and stays pretty well put. So I'm really liking these plastic cups that the restaurants are using. So why would I actually want a plastic cup on top of a pot? Well, it's to make more plants. So I do have a video on this sprout house and how the plant in there rooted. It was a cutting from another plant. And I'm going to show you in a minute how this one is rooted. First, I know it's rooted because when I give it a tug, this one comes out, so it's not rooted. When I give this one a tug, it's very tight and does not budge. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull that out and get it repositioned. So right now I'm making my propagation mix, and this is what a cocoa core brick looks like in my area. Like I said, it took me a long time to find cocoa core because it's not listed as cocoa core, it's listed as seed starting mix. So I'm going to make my propagation mix, and it's just going to be the cocoa core and perlite, absolutely no nutrients. So when you add water to this, the brick will expand, and I don't want to use this whole entire brick, so I'm just going to take a straightened knife and saw off some of it and go from there. So it's pretty much impossible for me to saw all the way through it, but I sawed all the way around it. And now I'm just going to break it off. So it snapped off really well, and I'm just going to add some water next. Now I'm just going to let it absorb into the cocoa core and mix it around a little bit. And this is a 10-inch bowl and 4 inches high. This is how much of the cocoa core block is left over. So it does make quite a bit. So now time for the big reveal. This one is not rooted yet, so we're just gonna stick that over here real quick. That one's not rooted either. And this one is. So I'm just gonna pull on here, and now you can see the roots. Which they're not very rooted out, but it's coming through the edge of the container, so we're just gonna put it back. Bury it back and make sure I don't bury it further than where it rooted. Steal some of this. Kind of pull that up a little bit. Press it down. There we go. Make sure. There we go. And water it in a little bit. And the whole point of doing that is because the roots were coming out at the bottom. And to show you the roots. And thanks to repurposing cups, I was able to create a perfect humidity dome to propagate. And as far as these two cuttings, they are still alive. So I'm going to transfer them into, the clay pot with the other cup. And they probably need their own, so go ahead and stick it in like that. Water it in. And I'm not going to worry so much about overwatering it, as it will drip out the bottom. And cover it with the McDonald's cup and keep it under a grow light. Rooting hormone was actually used in the beginning when I propagated these plants, and I have some video footage that I'm going to show at the end of this video. For now, I'm going to show you how I did the lettuce cracky hydroponics. Today, what I'm going to be doing is using these solid bottles to make my project, and the reason I'm showing these is because they are good choices. They do not let light through, and the cap size is perfect. I'm going to be making a beautiful little lettuce container box. So you could also do a beautiful floral arrangement that would live longer than cut flowers in this method that I'm using. I might do that later. So what you're going to need for the project is a little container. You can use whatever container you have, whether it be a cardboard box or something like this. This one came from a funeral home flower arrangement. My daughter was working as an intern at a funeral home. I was very proud of her. So this one will fit 4, and I'm gonna go ahead and get this started. Like I said, you could do flowers in this as long as it's root appropriate size for these containers. Marigolds and things like that would work nice. But I'm gonna go ahead and get this started. Another thing you're going to need are these net pots. They are listed as 1-inch net cups. And just to show you, they actually go a little bit over 1 inch because there's a lip on it. And the lip is important so they don't fall in. So if you're going to order net pots and it's 1 inch and it doesn't have that lip, they are going to fall right through. And I might put a link in the description of where to find the cups, and I'm not an affiliate link. I do not profit or anything from sharing this project. So I'm going to want to fill these in with water, and I'm not going to want to fill it to the top. I'm going to want it just underneath where this neck cup reaches, which is why I'm going to fill these with a neck cup inside, so I can see more where that water level is at. So I'm just gonna fill this bottle using a funnel because I'm not trying to make a mistake. Or am I? I don't know. Okay. I can't really see because the bottle is not clear, but we do not want a clear bottle for this project. Algae will grow from the light. And I'm just gonna take this out. I think that's good. I can't tell because I have water in the bottom of the net cup. So this wasn't the most genius idea, leaving the net cup in here. So it just needs a little bit more. Okay, let me see. Yeah. Okay, this is not easy. That's too much. Yes. So this is what we have. We have all of the bottles filled now, and it's hard to see where that water's at. But like I said, you want it just touching the bottom of the neck cup. And once again, I'm going to show the measurement. You can definitely tell this one's touching the bottom because it's got the water puddled at the end. Measure again, and that is what we're looking at. These are listed as 1-inch neck cups, but the lip keeps it from falling in. So actually, we are also going to need seed starting plugs, and mine are still in the mail on the way here. So I'm going to be cutting up a seed pod I have on hand to fit in here. So what I have coming in the mail is rock wool, and I would have to cut that too to get it to fit in these little bitty hydroponic openings. I have on hand some seed starting plugs that are kind of foamy. They're white and they are complete garbage. They are super cheap, but they get algae and they do not sprout well. So I'm going to be using what I trust, and it's these seed plugs right here. I'm going to be cutting these with a pair of scissors. I'm going to want a nice clean cut. I don't want the pieces falling apart like crazy because they will just fall into that water and create probably no problem whatsoever. I just don't want it to happen. So I'm just going to set that up here. So what I want is it to fit in here. And it's going to be hard because this shape is not quite the shape of this at all. Yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to give it a whirl. And this is long, so I'm just going to cut it right here. We got a nice clean cut. And yeah, probably should have cut it a little thicker. One more time this way. So here we go. See how that fits. It fits okay-ish. Let's pull that out so you can see it. Like I said, I should have cut it a little thicker, but it'll work. And I'm just gonna put this one in here as well. And oh, it kind of angled a little bit, which was nice because it blocks out more of that light. So one more time, I'm going to cut this one thicker right here. So that's what I mean about it falling apart. So there's one, a nice clean cut. And this one has a hole in it. I don't mind because I'm going to cut it right down the middle. And I'll be making my own holes in this. So I'm just gonna stick that in there like that. that is definitely a much nice tighter fit. And here we go, one more. I'm just dropping water and little fragments of this spongy seed plug. And this is not the same sponge as I spoke of earlier. This is actually some secret method of compressing peat moss, not a styrofoam or anything like that. So now that I have all of these done, I'm going to get a hole started. And to make this glorious hole I spoke of earlier, I'm going to be using a toothpick. So what I'm going to do is just take the toothpick and pop it right through. Ignore the fingernails. I do not get my nails done. I'm too busy spending my money on plants. To each their own. Okay, let's see. I have that hole in there. You can barely see it, but it's gonna work. If I could just get that little seed in there. So I probably might be able to stick the seed on top of the toothpick and shove it in. I'm just gonna continue making my holes. And there we go. You cannot see the holes. Maybe if I like swirl it around a little bit so you can make the hole a little bigger, but let's just try this. Let's get the seeds in. So I'm using a salad blend. As you can see, these are not all the same seeds. So I'm definitely wanting to not use the same seeds because I wanted to have a arrangement look. Those are two of the same lettuce plants. I can't control what seed is what, but I definitely can tell there's a difference in some of the seeds, so I'm going to try to get it to have an arrangement look. So I just lost one seed because this is going to be the hard process. Okay, so I'm going to take a seed and hopefully just kind of set it on the tip of my finger while I do this. Right there is my hole. Try to keep an eye on the hole. Over, yeah. So I'm just gonna take the toothpick, kind of shove it in there, and because I can still see it. I don't think you guys can see it, because that seed is the very same color. And it is in. Yeah, hopefully with one of the next seeds, you're gonna see, because I'm gonna pick a white seed. And now what I'm gonna do is just mist this in. And I'm going to have to keep this growing medium spongy thing wet until it sprouts. So here we go. I'm gonna be a little bit more organized so I don't forget which one I did. Okay, so once again, I'm gonna save this one for last. It's kind of short on the growing medium. So just find my hole real quick. It looks like that's a good space. Just leave that in there. Okay, so white seed. I'm gonna select one that looks good. I'm gonna set it on top of my finger here. I don't want to lose that. These are easy to drop. So I kind of had it in the middle and I've lost the hole, but yeah, it's kind of just, it's in. Yeah, it's in. That was easy. And just missed it. Okay. Because I'm going to want to keep that wet until it sprouts. And one more time. Oh, this seed definitely looks like a different one than the ones that I've already done. And I'm just going to set it up here. Take my toothpick and careful not to break the seed. And just kind of shove it in there. And you don't want to push the seed too deep because then it's just going to rot and not sprout. And feel free to use more than one seed if you feel that your sprouting rate is not very high. So I'm going to go ahead and do this last one, and I'll see you back when it starts growing. So I did decide to take that little piece that was left and changed out the little one that I cut too small. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the seed in, like I said. So I did just place it down here under some artificial lights. Artificial light is important. So this is something that I'm working on, and it's going to be filled out more because these are just seedlings, and eventually these plants will fill out the top of this box. They are lettuce seedlings being grown in empty coffee containers with a net pot, seed starting plug, and some water. So hopefully this takes off and does well. My recycled lettuce is absolutely beautiful. Little bottles, and the peppers are getting blooms on it or something. I mean, I hope it didn't flower it, because if it did, I missed it. But there's buds all over it. So I'm going to be working with this sprout house to try and propagate a lemonquat tree, also known as a Sunquat lemon drop. So I'm going to try to propagate some cuttings with the sprout house. So today what I'm going to do is try to propagate the citrus cuttings in the sprout house. The citrus cultivar happens to be lemonquat, also known as Sunquat or lemon drop. I have my citrus cuttings soaking in water till the meantime that I get everything else set up. So I have some sterile cocoa coir and perlite mix. It's dry, so I'm going to have to moisten it. So I moistened it with city water. So I did find a nursery pot that fits perfectly into the propagation pot. I'm using the nursery pot because it does have drainage, and this particular propagation pot does not have drainage. And yes, you should start with a sterile, clean pot, but I will be inserting a nursery pot with drainage holes. So if you can see there, it fits perfectly. And I'm going to go ahead and add my home mixed seed starting mix. So I'm just adding the seed starting mix. So the seed starting mix is in the nursery pot inside the propagation pot. So this in the background, I often use that over the sink to water my plants, because I just put it over the sink and the plants drain through. So this is the space that I have to work with. I definitely do not want to make the cutting too high. I need to give it a little room to grow if it starts to sprout out and this propagation works, and also not be smushed by this. I'm also going to need a certain amount of leaf nodes for this project to actually even work. But yeah, so this is actually a really good piece down here. I do not need all that leaf, but I think I'm just going to take the cutting from here and just snip that off. Place it back in the water, because this, I should not be touching this down here. I'm going to rinse that off. You want to keep your fingers away from that. I mean, if you're wearing gloves, that might be a whole different ball game. But so I'm just going to cut these leaves off right by the nodes, and I'm going to want to bury some of these, because this should be where the roots shoot out from. And not only do I want to remove the leaves for rooting purposes, I want to remove them too, so the plant doesn't struggle to keep moisture. So I'm just going to keep removing those. And up here, go ahead and prune the leaf. When I say prune leaves, I particularly do not mean take the leaf off. I actually mean cut the leaf. And often when I see a plant that has a bad leaf on it, instead of removing the entire leaf, I prune the leaf like I'm doing now, just cut the dead off of that. So now I'm left with this, and I'm going to dip it in some hormone powder, and you do not want to dip that in the actual container of the rooting hormone powder, just in case you are spreading disease. And normally they say remove some of the cambium layer from here to help it root, but I'm not going to do that. So I'm just going to get that nice and dipped. Shake it off a little bit, and I don't want to get this all over the house. I have dogs, so I'm just going to set that down till I get a little hole to place the cutting in. So I'm just going to grab a chopstick, and yes, I'm going to use the bigger size. So if you want, just use a pencil. I'm going to make a little hole for that so I don't push off all the rooting hormone powder. So I have the rooting hormone powder, and I'm going to bury this probably to this point right here. Let's go ahead and stick it in. It's in. Okay, so now that it's in to here, I'm just going to pinch that around. Take this out and give it a nice little spritz. You know what? I'm not going to take it out. I'm just going to spritz it. Okay, so once again, I'm using tap water, and that is probably tap city water. That is probably not the best choice of water to use when propagating a plant, especially one that is harder to root than others. So I left this one leaf. A lot of people don't do that. A lot of people would prune that too, but yeah. I'm gonna just sit that lid on. This is closed, and I'm gonna keep that closed. Now I'm gonna place it in front of a grow light. And if I were to place this outside, because I don't have a grow light or whatever, I would put it in 100% shade where it's not getting any direct sun at all. So I don't have any grow lights set up right now. I'm just gonna try to set this right here with the iHarvest, and it's kind of staying off the edge, so I'm gonna have to figure something out so where it doesn't fall off. So I was able to get it back there, yes, here by sliding it under here. But this is a cantaloupe plant, and it's actually shading out the container a little bit. So I'm gonna try to get it in an area where it's gonna get more light. It's odd because I say to put it in shade. These are really good lights that come with iHarvest, but it's not going to generate that heat. And it's the heat outside, if it's in direct sun, that's going to bake it because it's got the greenhouse top. This is day one in the propagation container. As you can see, the leaves are standing upright, which is a good sign. And in comparison to the homemade propagation area with the Ziploc bag over a nursery pot, you are seeing the leaves are not upright and they are drooping. This one has 2 in it, and you can see it's drooped over. To be fair, there's only 1 in the same size propagation homemade container, and the leaves again are appearing dry and droopy. And to be fair, you may think that it's just resting upon the container. It is not. It is 100% standing straight up, which is a good sign. So I did start the citrus cutting in a sprout house, and I noticed that it was doing a lot better than the citrus cuttings that I was doing in the Ziploc bags and the nursery pots. So I decided to try something. And when I tried it, the cup fit absolutely perfect on the nursery pot. This one, not so much. The sprout house is doing well on day 2. And if you notice, there are little humidity vents on each side of the sprout house. And there's also one on top that you can open and close depending on how much humidity is gathering in the dome. So because the dome was doing so well on day 2, I decided to put solo cups on top of the nursery pot. And this one happens to be one that I repurposed from getting a copy. And it fits so good on top of here. It won't even come off. So once again, it's day 2, and I took that off. Put the camera down and took it off. If you see it, it just pops right back in there and fits perfectly around the sides. So I really don't like throwing away garbage to begin with, especially plastic waste. So if I can reuse solo cups in the garden, yeah, I definitely will. Though I really don't see a dramatic improvement. I put this solo cup on maybe 3 hours ago. And you can see the humidity is a little high in there, unlike this one, which is maintaining a good humidity. This actually could cause some mold, so I might need to put some ventilation in here somewhere. So one more thing that I want to add, just in case anybody else has the urge, only on day 2 to start lifting this lid and tugging on the branch to see if it's rooted or not, because when you gently tug on a rooted cutting, it will not move much at all. So I do have the urge to lift it up out of the soil and look at it and tug on it, but I have learned from the past, you are not going to get any rooted cuttings if you do not leave them alone. So you put these cuttings in here and do not disturb. So I have been trying to propagate lemonquat cuttings, and I have done this before. I've always failed because I like to tug on them and pull them out, and I know better, I do. So I'm gonna try to just not pull and tug on it for over 2 weeks. So I'm not sure if you know this, but I'm in zone 5B, and growing citrus in here in the state is a little bizarre and almost impossible. One of the biggest problems that I face with growing citrus in zone 5B indoors is low indoor temperatures and low humidity. I would say the humidity averages around 25% humidity, and I run humidifiers, and I'm just feeling like it's not enough. So I really do love this sprout house. It successfully propagated a hydrangea first try, only 1 cutting. So it's a really, really cool propagation container. It offers plenty of space, just for 1 plant though. So granted, the aesthetics of the other container looks better. I mean, you could bedazzle this if you wanted to, put some beads on it, some sequins, make it rustic, put some, I don't know, twine on it, something. But this is just a regular fast food cup, and a lot of the restaurants have switched from the white plastic cups to the clear plastic cups, and I'm absolutely loving it because I can repurpose it in the garden. And if you look here, this actually snaps perfectly into place on this repurposed nursery pot. I probably can't even get it off with 1 hand. It's so well snapped in there. So it's snapped in there, and I got it out. Yay, there you go. Now it's back in. So And if you already knew this hack, shame on you for keeping secrets.